This week, for our Artist of the Week, we're going to learn about Georges Braque. And if you are taking a look at his painting right here, this probably looks a little familiar to you, okay, because it kind of looks like that Cubist painting that we looked at the very beginning of the year by Pablo Picasso. So, fun fact, Georges Braque and Pablo Picasso actually worked together. And I believe they were pretty much friends. And they both created the Cubism style, or the Cubism movement. And remember that with Cubism, everything kind of gets flattened out. Remember we talked about how Picasso's work looked like fields of broken glass, kind of shattered pieces together, very, very flat, shapely paintings. And with Georges Braque, it's the same thing because they were painting together pretty much and they created Cubism. And what's interesting about Georges Braque and Pablo Picasso, okay, is, yeah, they both helped invent Cubism, but Pablo Picasso is typically the one that gets all the credit for it. So really, we kind of have a Batman and Robin situation where somebody kind of gets all the glory, even though there's somebody else, you know, right there along with the hero, it seems, doing all the same stuff, and they just don't get as much credit. So Georges Braque really was another inventor of Cubism. So Pablo Picasso shouldn't get all the glory. They kind of look alike, actually. What's interesting about the Cubism that Georges Braque helped create was he helped create a style called analytic Cubism. And the idea is that these normal things that we use when we're drawing and painting and stuff, like lines and shapes and shading and stuff, they stopped having the same meaning. So typically when we draw, a line shows the edge of something, or some shading shows a shadow. But here, because he kind of flattened everything out, lines don't necessarily show the exact edge of something anymore. And shadows don't necessarily show the shadow of an object anymore. So you kind of jumbled everything together. So that's why this does look so crazy when you look at it. Another thing to think about is the fact that he kind of shows you different sides of the same object all at the same time. So for example, will be a good place to start. Okay, so here we have a fruit dish, right? And a fruit dish usually just a simple bowl or something, and we'll look directly at that bowl and we'll see it just from one perspective right in front of us. But what he did was he painted the front of it. He took a look at the side and painted the side of it as if you could see it right in front of you, and the other side of it and some of the back of it. And so he was painting all the different sides of something kind of at the same time. And so visually, it doesn't make sense in our world because our objects don't really look like this, but because we only see one side of something at the same time. It's as if I was going to paint a drawing of my mom and I drew the front of her face and I drew the back of her head all in the same painting. I could only see my mom from one angle, so would only be able to paint that from one side. I can't see the back of her head when I'm looking at the front of her face. But again, Georges Braque kind of broke that. He drew and painted all the sides of something at the same time. So that's pretty much it. Now, we do still see like little bits of something. Like if you're looking at this, I'm guessing you can kind of tell what he was painting. Okay, if you especially look in here, this probably starts to look like a certain musical instrument to you. So we still have the essence of something, and that's what kind of like abstract art is about. You still have the idea of an object, but it's it can be really, really distorted. Now, here are all the bullet points this week. There isn't a video that goes along with this, so you don't have to watch it, but you're going to do a nice little summary about the points. What do we miss? Oh, he, just like Picasso, he helped invent collage, and he experimented a lot with different materials and stuff. So go ahead and do your summary and answer your questions. Good luck.